Hi there, I'm Rose, and this is a video about the 4 things that I thought were interesting that you probably missed in The Lord of the Flies. So what do I mean by the 4 things that I thought were interesting that you probably missed in The Lord of the Flies? Well, I'm glad you asked. What I mean by the 4 things that I thought were interesting that you probably missed in The Lord of the Flies was that there were 4 details in the book which I thought were sorta interesting. And I assume you might not have thought of them, because you probably have a normal functioning brain that doesn't constantly spew nonsensical concoctions of utter idiocy. Help me. Anyways, what are the 4 things that I'm not gonna keep doing that, it's dumb. It's a dumb bit. Here's how it's gonna go. I'm going to list 3 cohesive details, and then I'm going to say 1 extremely wacky, yet 100% real, detail about the true plot of said book. I would do more, but according to the page 239 of the Moral Laws of Noah Rosenberg, Principle 582, Section B, Paragraph 192, which clearly states, Noah Rosenberg is not permitted to give answers to school-related projects that consist of primarily hilariously deemed to be inappropriate in an educational setting answers. Therefore, I have to follow this, or I'll be sued. Wow, I just wasted so much of your life. So let's begin. The first aspect of the book that caught my mentally unstable eye was that the book introduces the main characters in a very interesting fashion, some of which portray the character's role in the book, and some that don't. We're introduced to the book's main figures, Piggy and Ralph. And you can immediately see Piggy's position in the book. He's ignored, slow, and a big talker. The author shows Piggy's lack of wordiness, how he drones on and on about seemingly meaningless topics. His asthma, his aunt, his house, which to him is very important, but to others isn't, which will play in throughout the book. This also shows how little respect and attention is provided to Piggy from others. In this scene, Ralph. Ralph simply walks on without listening, and in the process falls and slightly injures himself. This whole intro introduces the important aspect that Piggy is deemed unimportant. The scene also doubles as an introduction to the 2 characters, including Ralph. However, Ralph's representation seems to be flipped at first. He doesn't care about Piggy, he isn't trying to be a leader, he tries to figure it out by himself, and he tries to figure it out in a childlike format, standing on his head. Let's get to Jack's introduction. From the second the book talks about him, he's painted as a leader, keeping his choir in perfect unison. He keeps control over his group and shows his leadership proudly. And all of this shows my next detail. Foreshadowing. If you don't know what foreshadowing is, it's when something gives a clue into the future, a glimpse of the upcoming events that's unnoticeable from the present and only can be truly appreciated once you've seen it all play out. Foreshadowing is a major aspect of The Lord of the Flies. It's extremely prominent, but only when looked closely at. And basically all of these hidden details which I'm talking about revolve around foreshadowing, just in different senses. On to our last concrete, believable, missable detail. And this one is a doozy. The entire book can be summarized by the first chapter. And here's how. First, as previously stated, the characters' introductions basically define their entire story throughout the book. It tells the story of Piggy, a young, unappreciated, non-leader kid who understands what needs to happen, yet nobody will listen. He's smart, yet he's dumb. The first thing he does when meeting Ralph is tell him his worst insecurity, people calling him Piggy. Ralph. He's determined. The first thing he does is plunge through the forest without knowing his endgame.
Reference 100% purposeful.
Which illustrates his lack of knowledge and his inability to pack a punch when it comes to leading. Leadership. He can't sustain leadership with Piggy. He just ignores him, which shows how he will not be able to sustain leadership with others, how his goal is loose and hard to live out. Jack. Jack is shown as a leader, but a bad one. His first action is to remain standing until one of his colleagues collapses due to blacking out. It shows how he has a blatant disregard for the safety and well-being of his protégés, which will play out in his leadership role in the later bits of the book. And finally, the whole general plot lies in one part. So let's rewind. Ralph simply walks on without listening, and in the process falls and slightly injures himself. You may have thought that this part was a random detail, which it was, but it also was foreshadowing of this part. Anyways, does it sound at all familiar? Piggy has insights about stuff that are completely and utterly ignored, which leads to the injury of others. If you're not the brightest sun baby in the galaxy, you might not have caught on. It's the plot of the book. And yes, it's super generalized and simplified, but it is a valid point, which to me shows me that the author performed a perfect example of foreshadowing. Great, now that I've officially finished all 3 aspects of the book that I legally had to add, I can get into the more interesting one. You ready for it?
Jack is literally the devil himself.
Okay, I know that's harsh, so let's rephrase it. Jack is literally the beast. Well, now you're probably thinking,
Noah, how the actual frickin' chickens is this possible?
and to you, good sir, I say, how is it not possible? Here is the profound evidence. 1. Jack literally murdered several people. So, yeah. And they all said that the beast killed. 2. Jack's subtle appreciation of the beast. You see, Jack believed from the start that the beast could exist. He fueled the flame of the fear that was found in the group. If he was the beast, this could be a very strategic move on his part. First, he'd instill fear in the group by making them believe in him. Then he'd play the knight in shining armor by saying he'd protect them from the beast, whereas Ralph only denied its presence. Therefore, Jack would be seen as the solution. Then he would take over control of the group and make them almost into slaves, a powerhouse of rightless people. He basically forced the others into participation. 3rd, Jack never wants to return home. He never says or sees the purpose in returning to where they came from. Perhaps that's because Jack never was there. Maybe the beast is stuck on this island, and now that the world has brought him a group of naive children to play with, his goal is to keep them there, to continue the torment forever. He never really discusses the outside world, maybe because he doesn't know it. Then this would bring up the question, how does the rest of the choir know him? And to answer that, I have several theories. So here they are. 1. Mind control. I think that the beast used mind control as a way to force the fake memory of a kid named Jack into their minds. They really don't know him, other than his name. 2. Body snatcher. It's also possible that the beast took the real form of a real kid, Jack Meridew, and therefore took over the mind and control of said kid. Perhaps he simply nullified the aspects of the mind of the original Jack Meridew. And those are the theories. Now, if you're still not convinced that Jack is the beast, then here is a major clue. According to the children who say they saw the beast, it is a slithering black mass, almost snake-like. And guess how the children described Jack as he approached the platform at the beginning of the book? Yep, that's right, as a black slithering mass that resembled a snake.
Due to their outfits.
If that isn't a direct nod to the true nature of Jack Meridew, then I don't know what is. I rest my case. I hope I changed your mind about the book and gave you a little bit of insight into the crazy potential of this book. And, ciao.
I met her in a club down in Old Soho, where you drink champagne and it tastes like Coca-Cola, C-O-L-A Cola. She walked up to me and she asked me to dance.